Across Africa, an alarming number of children are incarcerated in adult prisons. In the heart of one of the continent's oldest prisons, inmates find fleeting salvation from a living hell, clinging to the light of their faith amidst unimaginable despair. These men have been found guilty of war crimes, rape, murder, and torture. Many of them are still on remand. Dehumanised by filth and overcrowding, inmates face some of the worst prison conditions on earth. Pademba Road was built for 300 inmates. More than 1,000 live here now. Deprived of clean drinking water, for the prisoners, terrible thirst brings unbearable tension. Faced with one square meal a day, the battle to reach food regularly overspills into violence. In the fight to survive in this misery, the vulnerable and weak are left exposed.
So they are juveniles. There are many in here, not even all of them they are here right now. So the juveniles are more important to help them. Because now you see these guys of 14 years, 13 years, 15 years, 15 years. There are many in here, some of them even 12 years old. You know, for me they don't do anything. They just tie some of them on the street because they are street boys. They live on the street, so they just arrest them and bring them in prison. Some of them, if you see them, there's no facility. The toilet facility is difficult.
I 2009, my age is 14 years age. Last year by Katu, Ativan, and then jail me 2 years jail.
Salmami Sambuga. My name is Salmami Sambuga. They jailed me for 4 years. They say I thief order. Me age now 17. 2007.
I realized from 2004. They accused me of murder. My name is Hassan Badra. I came here in 2010. My age is 16 years of age. I achieved of simple lesson, stealing groundnuts because of hunger.
Like children in other African prisons, inmates suffer the fierce hand of the law. Often their cases go unheard for years. Their stories remain untold. And their lives are haunted by threats and intimidation. One of the worst experiences facing young inmates in Africa is rampant sexual abuse. Outsiders know little of what goes on behind the crumbling walls of Zanzibar's central prison. The authorities want to keep it that way.
What are the conditions like inside this prison?
Conditions?
Yeah.
Conditions well.
I am told that the conditions are very bad. Do you know? How many children are inside?
Near 30.
30 children inside, yeah?
Near 30, yeah.
How old are the children? What age are they?
The children?
Yeah.
16, 17.
Many younger? 13, 14, some?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Dangerous offenders being transported to serve time in one of the harshest prison systems in Africa. Captured amongst the grown men is the anxious face of a child. Zanzibar is an island where the ancient Arab world meets Africa. Shaped by traditional values, little has changed here in a millennia. Children who find themselves in conflict with the law are still punished like adults. Taken into custody at just 12 years old, Hassim Mohammed is one of the countless youngsters to have felt the full force of Zanzibar's draconian laws. Haunted by months behind bars, the schoolboy faced abuse at the hands of both guards and adult inmates.
Walinipiga, wakaniburuza, wakaniambia nitaje, nikasitaji, wakanichinja hapa, nikasitaji, wakanipiga, wakaniburuza, ndio nikataja, nikasema mmechukua. Pili nikachukua F30 nimechukua, nikaekwa gerezani. Kanalia kamba nisameni, storejea tena kuiba. Akaniambia kaa tunakukomesha. Alikuwa ananikomesha. Alikaa gerezani, kuna chawa, kuna mbu, napata shida, chakula tupati kwa raha. Watu wengine wanabakwa. Kule wamenibaka. Nilipokule alikuwa wamenibaka nilipokule. Kanaenda kutafuta kuni, nafanyishwa kazi. Watu wengine wanabakwa, kabakwa, kutafuta kuni kule, kwa nateswa, napigwa mkwaju, nifanya kaidi. Kila siku naenda kutafuta kuni.
Hearing of the torture her son was enduring, Hasim's mother, Fatima, desperately tried to help her son, banging on the doors of the prison, begging for his release.
Nilivyomueleza akawa analia, akaenda kule polisi akawaambia watoto wadogo msiki na watu wazima watatuharibia watoto wetu.
Many believe the guiding hand of a compassionate society should shape a child's future. But in Zanzibar, juveniles in conflict with the law are treated ruthlessly and with an iron fist. When he was barely 11, Kareem was picked up for stealing a mobile phone. For this petty offence, he received a 12-month sentence.
Kwa gerezani tulikuwa watoto 6, wakubwa wenzetu walikuwa 7. Tulichanganywa kwa pamoja tukawekwa chumba kimoja. Alafu watoto walikuwa wanalia sana, lakini kimoyomoyo, manake wakitoa sauti wanakuja kupewa adhabu. Maana walikuwa wakilia kiroho. Kwanza tulikuwa tunalala chini kwenye kokoto, alafu wanakuja kumwaga maji ya baridi. Alafu tunachelewa kulala, tunawahi kulala saa 9, kuamka na saa 11. Wengine huwa wanaeka wao pembeni, wanapunguza nusu, alafu sisi wanatupa nusu, alafu wanakitia mfano maharage mabovu, alafu wanatuletea sisi ndani. Tunachokula turiziki, tunaanza kugombaniana chengine ndo wanakuwa wanakula wao. Ndiyo, waliwahi kumfanya mwenzetu mdogo, lakini sauti ilisikika nje na hatimaye yake walikuja askari kuja kumpa adhabu yule aliyofanya kitendo.
In the darkness of the prison cells, innocence is lost. With the shadows closing in, night time was what the children feared most. They were left to their fate by guards who chose to look away. Masif endured repeated sexual assaults during his year-long incarceration.
Mtu akiwa na pesa yake anamtuma askari sigara. Askari akirudi kwenda kununua sigara pale, mtu anampa jamaa sigara. Alafu usiku ukifika anaambia ile sigara nimekupa kwa lengo langu. Kama hataki anamfanyia kwa nguvu. Mwanzo nilipofika ndo akanambia leo mtoto, kuna jamaa mmoja ndo akanambia leo mtoto mzuri umekuja. Akananishika mega stack, ndo akanambia usiku wa leo vyakula vyangu vyote nitakupa wewe, lakini usiku wa leo nilale na wewe. Walikuwa wananitesa ndo hao wengine wa chumbani wenye mashuka, alikuwa kama ukitaka ujifunike shuka ndo mpaka ufanye nao kitendo. Walikuwa hawanitesa wale wawili tu vile male ndo wako kumbini pale. Ndo walikuwa wale wamepoa shuka ndo mawili, mmoja alikuwa na mawili, ndo nilipotolewa chumba kile ndo nilikuwa kumbini ndo nikapewa shuka moja, nao huyo kilema mmoja tu mzima kidogo. alikuwa mimi mwanzo nasoma. Nilipoenda kule nikaacha mpaka masomo, kanalala chini kwenye saruji. Kila nikilifikiria lile ka skuli hata sendi, na nilipotoka ikawa naumwa saa kifua, maradhi kila maradhi.
With their disproportionate rates of HIV infection and AIDS cases, African prisons lead former child inmates onto a troubled path into adulthood, scarred by shame and stigma. Humna went into prison at 14 years old for stealing a coconut. The teenager still finds it difficult to come to terms with what he witnessed.
Yani hiyo nimeongelea labda usafi ni kitu kama labda ile kapata bahati mpaka kapona nafasi hiyo. Huwa anapoa kazi nzito zaidi ya hiyo. Lakini hiyo nimechukulia tu kwamba kapata bahati tu mtu kama huyo. Kwa kazi kama hiyo. Yani kama mtu kwa sababu yule mtu mmoja anakuwa anamhadaa yule, unafahamu? Labda kwa chakula kwa sababu hamna chakula cha kutosha. Unafahamu? Na hakuna chakula cha kutosha mle ndani, kwa hivyo mtu anakuta na mtoto anamhadaa kwa chakula, lakini anakuta mfungwa yeye yupo jikoni, kwa hivyo anachukua chakula cha kutosha, ufahamu. Kwa hivyo yule anamhadaa kwa chakula, anaingia mwenyewe kwa makubaliano ya watu wawili yani, ufahamu. Lakini sasa yule yani amemhadaa, si makubaliano, ni shote amemhadaa. Watoto kubakwa wanaotokezea, hizi zinatokezea, lakini siwezi kujua muda gani. Hilo jambo nilitokezea kama bahati tu kulikuta labda au tatizo, fulani bwana kambaka fulani bwana mle ndani. Kwa hivyo hii kesi labda watu unakuta amefanya lile tendo, watu wamemuona, kwa hivyo tunakwenda sote mle ndani kushuhudia kila kitu kama ni kweli, na si kwamba anakuja bwana jela kikazi pale na tunamuelezea kwa sote kwamba bwana mtu ni kweli amefanya tukio hili. Lakini si kwamba labda ndo mara kwa mara natokezea hiyo, kwa kweli nitasema uongo.
Kenya is one African nation that has been lauded for its progressive stance on juvenile justice. But Kenya's commitment to the rights of children in conflict with the law still falls short. Young offenders are trapped in an unfair and harsh juvenile system. Condemned to serve lengthy periods behind bars before they even appear in front of a judge. Kenya's detention centres are plagued by stories of corporal punishment and educational neglect. Long, lonely days on remand turn to months and years. A first-time offender arrested for pickpocketing, 15-year-old Martin has been stranded in detention for over a year. He and his fellow inmates are still waiting to have their cases heard.
Nilikuwa nagoa juu hapo mbeleni sijaifika pale kama hiyo. Sasa nilikuwa naogopa hiyo kweli. Mimi tunaweza sema hiyo koti yani ningependelea waniachilie juu sasa yenyewe nimefocus na nimeexperience ile kitu nilidusi poa, na hata nikienda hivyo home bad company staki, hata kama ni friend, lakini friend na limit.
An orphan driven to steal by poverty, Martin hopes the authorities will take pity and understand his desperate family situation.
Manti zangu wengine wamemtupa, nataka kujagi huko, na wale wachache wanamsaidia, but yeye ndo usafa peke yake kwangu.
It's believed up to 85% of children entering detention should never have been exposed to the criminal justice process.
Legality of any issue in the country.
Many of the youngsters never return to a normal childhood. They're forced to abandon their education or leave home, and with it, any hope of a successful future. 13-year-old Eric's experience of detention has left him mentally and physically scarred. During his 6 months in a children's remand centre, he was regularly beaten and kept in solitary confinement.
Nilikuwa tu nataka tu aniachilie tu nikae tu nyumbani. Tukaanzia kucheza. Kibahati mbaya nikarusha kijiti. Nikagonga juu ikamdunga macho. Akaanguka, akapelekwa hospitali. Ndio akatolewa hospitali, akatengenezwa macho. Watoto wanachezanga vibaya, wanagongana, wanaumizana. Nilikuwa nadhania nikaa nachukiwa, lakini kukaa nikaona ninapendwa.
Social activists believe Kenya still needs to do more to protect children.
Because even children have got their views, and when we understand and hear their views, we are able to assist them more. Unlike before, whereby we'll say, no, children are not supposed to do this, children are not supposed to attend, children are only supposed to respect and obey. Now the society has changed. We really need to understand these children and to listen to them, because they have issues that are also affecting them.
Poverty and war has driven hundreds of thousands of refugees into Kenya's sprawling slums. Cast out from their families, a new generation of street children fight a desperate battle to survive. The authorities have little sympathy for them. Street boys are harassed, beaten, and taken into custody on a daily basis. Girls complain of sexual harassment and rape. They believe they've become criminalised for living on the streets.
Few are those who have not been in jail, but many, they have been in jail, and not one time. It's often, like a year, you'll go 3 times or 4 times. Yeah. So you like that, a lost man there. No lawyer to talk about you, no human group to talk about you. You are just forgotten. So you'll survive there according to the years the judge have given you in jail. When they get over, you come back to the life again.
Hundreds of street children appear before Kenyan magistrates every week. Few are given legal representation.
It's all about poverty. They are pushed into crimes by poverty. That is what makes them to get into crime, as a means of survival and also as a means of fending for themselves. They tell me that the police harass them so much, and now that there are also people in the authority and also people with uniforms, that alone makes the children get so scared, so they feel so intimidated. They admit even if they did not commit the crimes, just because the sight of the police, the moment they see that police, they know that, I've been on the wrong. So they just go ahead and admit. But they tell me it's always terrible being in the hands of police officers. They get so harassed.
And once inside, there's little effective rehabilitation of young offenders. Pollsmoor Maximum Prison in South Africa is one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. Here, ruthless gang culture dominates life behind bars, adding a darker and deeply troubling dimension to the criminalisation of children in prison. Juveniles have no option but to choose their allegiance. Finding the inner child in young criminals presents a battle for hearts and minds. But in truth, the deadly grip of the gangs is almost impossible to overcome.
Yeah, it's this first one was this one. Is Gravestown.
at the end, I'm the only one gonna go to the grave alone, you see. So I will carry my own cross to the grave.
Entering the criminal world at just 9 years old, Manny has spent most of his childhood in and out of Pollsmoor prison.
In my heart, I was crying, and I was crying tears also, thinking what could happen. And I was thinking about things that I hear outside about people raping kids in prison and things like that. So I was even crying, and I was scared, nervous, thinking what can happen when I'm gonna go in there. I don't think I did have toys. We were playing outside with the kitty balls when I was young, and sometimes we mooring the other kids, things like that. Smoke ganza, steal ganza.
After his first spell in jail, Manny found it difficult to escape the cycle of crime.
And then when I was around 10 years old, there again I was going at a reformatory again for chain robbing and active robbing, like robbing people like with a knife, and house breaking, car breaking and things like that. Gangsters became my role model because being a gangster is a good thing that time, and also I see the power they have. I also want to be a gangster, yeah. I had to act like a gangster and be a brave man in front of my friends, and if you say something that sound like a sissy or things like that, it's like you're the loser in the crew, you see.
By the time they reach adulthood, the ink-stained bodies of Pollsmoor's children will become brutal maps of a violent life. To survive in prison, they have no choice but to embrace gang culture or be singled out for rape and beatings. For most, the initiations are their first steps on the serious crime ladder. Ricardo was abandoned by his father when he was 5. Carrying guns at 7, he was in prison by the time he was 12. Trapped in a damp cell, he was overwhelmed with regret.
Tegen wat ik in die tronk is het, maar ik hier krullen gekeken en ik hou die berg zo dop. Ik kan niet liggen en steren, dan denk ik wat maken mensen op de kant toe. Wat maken ze allemaal nou, hoe lekker kan mijn maas je kost nog over zitten. Maar je was het bij je kak geweest in die tronk en toen was het, toen ik gewoon wanneer ga ik iets doen, ik wil ik heb bijna mijn maag denk.
The journey from playground to prison is short and brutal. All but 2 African states have ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, but juvenile justice remains elusive, failing to shine a light on the countless hidden faces still locked in Africa's prison cells.